I watched my own caretaker whisper into her phone while crushing something into my evening tea. And that was the exact moment I realized I might not live long enough to prove it. The camera angle was crooked, tucked inside a porcelain sugar jar I hadn't used in years, but it showed enough. Sabine Vossen stood in my kitchen, calm as always, her movements slow and precise. She glanced over her shoulder once, then tipped a small white tablet onto the counter and pressed it flat with the back of a spoon. The sound was soft, controlled, practiced. Then she stirred it into the steam of my chamomile like she'd done it 100 times before. "Not much longer," she murmured into the phone. "She's already weaker than she thinks." I paused the video and sat very still. "Hello, dear. Grace here. I don't like this one bit. When someone smiles to your face and poisons you behind your back, that's not care. That's calculation. Tell me in the comments, at what point would you stop trusting her?" My name is Helena Morday. I'm 66 years old, and until 3 nights ago, I believed I was simply getting older. Slower, perhaps. A little forgetful. Nothing unusual. Nothing alarming. And Sabine? Well, Sabine had been my caretaker for 3 years. She arrived on a rainy afternoon with a neat suitcase, a calm voice, and references that checked out too cleanly. I remember the smell of petrichor drifting through the hallway as she stepped inside, wiping her shoes carefully on the mat as if she already belonged there. She made lentil broth that first evening, thick with cumin and something sharper I couldn't quite place. Said it was her grandmother's recipe. I liked her immediately. That was my first mistake. At first, everything about her was efficient. She organized my medication, labeled everything in tidy handwriting, rearranged my pantry so even the saffron jar had its proper place. She remembered my preferences before I said them out loud. Earl Grey in the morning. Chamomile at night. No sugar after dinner. She even polished the banister with some citrus oil that made the whole house smell like a distant orchard. People told me I was lucky. My daughter, Aylin Morday, said it constantly. "You finally have someone reliable, Mother. Just let her handle things." Aylin doesn't visit much anymore. Busy life, busy husband, busy everything. But when she did come, she would always nod approvingly at Sabine, as if she'd personally selected her from some catalog of perfect solutions. I didn't argue. Why would I? Sabine was attentive, gentle, always just a step behind me on the stairs, just in case. Always offering a steady arm I didn't think I needed, but sometimes accepted anyway. It was subtle, the way things began to change. My phone would ring, and by the time I reached it, Sabine would already be there. "Just a telemarketer," she'd say lightly, ending the call before I could see the screen. Letters arrived less frequently. Or perhaps they were simply sorted elsewhere. My neighbor, Moira Fennick, stopped coming by with her usual plum tarts. Sabine said Moira mentioned I seemed tired lately, that I needed rest. I didn't remember saying that. Then came the small things. A silver bookmark missing from my study. My old fountain pen replaced with a cheaper one that scratched the paper differently. I told myself it was age, that I was misplacing things. That's what Sabine told me too. "You've been more forgetful lately, Helena," she said once gently while adjusting the cuff of my cardigan. "It happens." Maybe it does. But forgetfulness doesn't explain why I started feeling dizzy after my evening tea. The first time, I thought I'd stood up too quickly. The second time, I held onto the edge of the table until the room stopped tilting. The third time, I nearly missed a step on the staircase, and Sabine caught me. Just in time, of course. Her grip firm, her voice soothing. "Careful," she whispered. "You mustn't rush." I remember looking at her then. Really looking. Her expression was perfect. Concerned. Warm. But her eyes didn't match it. That night I couldn't sleep. Not properly. My thoughts felt padded, like they were wrapped in something soft and distant. I got up, wandered into the kitchen, and saw my pill organizer on the counter. I don't remember leaving it there. The compartments were labeled correctly. Morning, afternoon, evening. But one of the pills, a small oval one, looked slightly different. Same color, same size. Just off. Like a forgery that almost passed. I didn't confront her. I didn't say a word. Instead, the next morning, I smiled. I thanked her for breakfast, poached eggs with a dusting of smoked paprika, and told her I'd be resting more. That I felt a bit frail. She seemed pleased. That was when I decided to find out the truth. I've never been reckless, not even when I was younger. My late husband, Edmund Morday, used to say I had the patience of a watchmaker, always willing to wait for the right moment. So I waited. I went into town under the pretense of picking up a new shawl and stopped at a small electronics shop tucked between a bakery and a place that sold overpriced vellum journals. The young man behind the counter barely looked at me until I asked him which compact cameras had the best low-light recording. He blinked. Then he took me seriously. I bought 2. One now lives inside that porcelain sugar jar in my kitchen. The other is in my study, inside a hollowed-out copy of an old cookbook Sabine never touches because she prefers her own recipes. For 2 days, I recorded everything. I watched her move through my house like she owned it. Opening drawers she had no reason to open, pausing at my study door longer than necessary, checking my phone when she thought I was asleep. And then, tonight, I saw the truth. The crushed tablet. The quiet voice. The words I can't unhear. She's already weaker than she thinks. I pressed play again, forcing myself to watch it from the beginning. This time I didn't pause. And this time, I noticed something I had missed before. She wasn't alone on that call. "Carter," she said softly, almost affectionately. "Just a little longer." I leaned back in my chair, the faint smell of chamomile drifting in from the kitchen, untouched on the tray beside me. I did not drink it. Not tonight. I did not sleep that night. Not even for a minute. Instead, I sat in my study with the lamp turned low, replaying the footage until the details burned into my mind. The way Sabine's hand moved, steady, unhurried. The way she checked the hallway before crushing the tablet. The way she said his name. Carter. Not once did she hesitate. That frightened me more than anything else. People who hesitate can be stopped. People who don't plan ahead. By morning, I had already made my decision. I would not confront her. Not yet. Panic would only give her an advantage. If Sabine believed I suspected something, she could change tactics, erase evidence, or worse, accelerate whatever she had planned for me. So I did the opposite. I made myself smaller. At breakfast, I moved slower than usual, letting my hand tremble just enough as I reached for the spoon. Sabine noticed immediately. Of course she did. "You're pale today, Helena," she said, placing a bowl of oatmeal in front of me, topped with sliced figs and a drizzle of honey. "Did you sleep poorly?" "A little," I replied, keeping my voice soft. "I feel tired." Her eyes lingered on me for half a second longer than necessary, measuring, calculating. Then she smiled. "I'll adjust your evening dose," she said gently. "It might help." I nodded as if that comforted me. Inside, something cold settled into place. The rest of the day unfolded like a quiet performance. I stayed in the sitting room, wrapped in a wool shawl I didn't need, pretending to nap while watching her through half-closed eyes. Sabine moved through the house with the same quiet efficiency, but now I saw it differently. Every action had intention. Every pause had purpose. Around noon, my phone rang. Before I could reach it, Sabine was already there. "It's just a wrong number," she said quickly, turning the screen away from me. I smiled faintly. Of course. But I had seen enough. Later, when she stepped out to the garden, I walked, carefully, slowly, to the console table where she had left my phone. My heart was beating faster than I liked, but my hands were steady. The call log had been cleared. Not just the last call. All of them. I exhaled slowly. That was not care. That was control. I returned the phone exactly where she had placed it and went back to my chair just before she re-entered, carrying a small basket of herbs. Rosemary, thyme, and something darker I didn't recognize. "For the soup tonight," she said. "Of course," I replied. That evening, I took another step. When Sabine brought my tea, the same chamomile, the same delicate porcelain cup, I smiled at her, thanked her, and waited until she left the room. Then I stood up, walked to the fern by the window, and slowly poured the entire cup into the soil. The scent was the same, sweet, harmless, but I no longer trusted anything she gave me. The next morning, I felt clearer than I had in weeks. No dizziness, no fog, no strange heaviness in my thoughts. That alone told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't just making me feel weak. She was making me look weak. That afternoon, I reviewed the footage again, this time more carefully. And that's when I saw him. It was brief. Just a shadow crossing the edge of the frame near the back entrance. A man's silhouette. Tall. Still. Waiting. I paused the video, leaning closer to the screen. Sabine stepped into view a second later, opening the door just enough to speak. Her voice was lower now, sharper. "Not today," she whispered. "She's still aware." Still aware. I sat back slowly, the words echoing in my mind. So that was the timeline. They weren't just planning something. They were waiting for the moment I wouldn't be able to stop them. I stopped pretending it might still be harmless. Up until that moment, some small, stubborn part of me had been trying to soften the truth. Misunderstanding, overreaction, a mistaken medication, perhaps. Something explainable. But not today. She's still aware is not a misunderstanding. That is timing. That is intent. That is waiting for the right moment to do something irreversible. I turned off the screen and sat there for a long time, listening to the quiet of my own house. The ticking clock in the hallway. The faint hum of the refrigerator. The soft scrape of Sabine's footsteps moving somewhere beyond the door. Everything sounded the same, and yet nothing was. For the first time in years, I felt completely awake. Not just alert, precise. I stood up slowly, walked to the mirror above my desk, and looked at myself. My hair still thick, though silver now. My posture slightly stooped, but not weak. My eyes, clear, much clearer than they had been in weeks. "She's still aware," I repeated under my breath. Good. Let them think that wouldn't last. That afternoon, I made the second decision that would save my life. I needed allies, but not the obvious ones. Not Aylin, not yet. If Sabine had already convinced my daughter that I was declining, anything I said now would sound like confusion, paranoia, fear. I would only confirm the story Sabine had been carefully building around me. No, I needed someone who dealt in facts, not impressions. So I called my bank. I waited until Sabine stepped out again. She had developed a habit of taking short walks at odd hours, and went straight to my study. I locked the door, sat down, and dialed the private number written on the back of my account folder. Gideon Strayed speaking. His voice was exactly as I remembered, calm, measured, professional to the bone. "Mr. Strayed, this is Helena Morday." A brief pause, then recognition. "Mrs. Morday. Of course. How can I assist you?" "I need you to tell me," I said quietly, "if there have been any irregular activities on my accounts. Small ones, transfers, withdrawals, anything unusual." Another pause, longer this time. "May I ask what prompted this concern?" "No," I said. "Not yet. Just check." I heard typing on the other end. Fast, efficient. Then silence. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. "Mrs. Morday, there have been a series of minor transfers over the past 4 months. Nothing large, carefully spaced, each one below standard alert thresholds." My hand tightened around the receiver. "How much?" "Individually, insignificant, collectively." He hesitated. "Just over 23,000? I closed my eyes. $23,000, not stolen in one bold move. No. Taken slowly, quietly, like everything else. "Do you recognize the receiving accounts?" I asked. "No," he replied, "but I can trace them further if you authorize a deeper review." "You have my authorization." There was no hesitation in my voice now. "Done," he said. "And Mrs. Morday, if I may, I recommend placing temporary restrictions on outgoing transfers until we understand the situation fully." "Yes," I said. "Do that." When the call ended, I sat in silence for a few seconds, letting the number settle into place. 23,000. And that was just what I could see. I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, and pulled out the old leather-bound ledger I hadn't used in years. Edmund used to keep records in it, meticulous, precise. Every expense, every investment, written in ink that never faded. I opened to a blank page and began writing again. Dates, observations, changes, patterns, not emotions, facts. If this was going to end, it would end cleanly. By the time I heard the front door open, I had already returned the ledger to its place and settled back into my chair, a blanket over my knees. Sabine stepped inside, removing her gloves slowly. "Helena?" she called softly. "Are you resting?" "Yes," I replied, letting my voice drift just slightly. "Just tired." She appeared in the doorway a moment later, studying me. Then she smiled. "Good," she said. "You should save your strength." I smiled back, and for the first time since this began, I meant it. Just not in the way she thought. Because now I knew. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't care gone wrong. This was a plan. And they had made one mistake. They started it too early. I was still aware. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I let her win a little. Not enough to change the outcome, just enough to make her comfortable. I spilled my tea. Not dramatically. Just a small, clumsy motion. My hand slipping as I lifted the cup. The liquid spread across the saucer and onto the tablecloth, soaking into the fabric. "Oh," I murmured, blinking as if confused. Sabine was beside me instantly. "It's all right," she said softly, already reaching for a cloth. "These things happen. I watched her hands as she cleaned. Quick, efficient, no irritation, no surprise, as if she had been expecting it. I feel a bit off today, I added, letting my voice thin out slightly. Perhaps you were right about adjusting the dosage. There it was. A flicker. Gone in less than a second, but I saw it. Satisfaction. I think that would be wise, she replied gently. We'll make you more comfortable. Comfortable? I nodded, lowering my gaze. Inside, I was counting every word. By noon, she brought me a small tray. Broth, lightly salted, with a slice of dark bread, and a thin spread of something herbal I didn't recognize. The smell was pleasant, earthy, almost sweet. I didn't touch it. Instead, I let the spoon rest in my hand, unmoving, until she came back to check on me. You haven't eaten, she noted. I forgot, I said quietly. Another pause. Then she smiled again. That's all right. I'll remind you. Of course you will. That afternoon, I made my move. Carefully. Deliberately. I waited until she was upstairs. I could hear the faint shift of drawers opening in my bedroom. And I stood up without the slow, fragile act. My legs were steady. My head was clear. I went straight to the kitchen. The cup from the morning still sat in the sink, unwashed. I took it out, rinsed it lightly, then reached for a small glass vial I had hidden behind the flour tin the night before. Not poison. Nothing dramatic. Just a sample. I had collected it from the soil of the fern, where I had poured last night's tea. Dark residue had settled at the base, faint but visible. Enough to matter. Enough for someone who knew what to look for. I sealed the vial tightly and slipped it into the inner pocket of my cardigan. Then I returned everything exactly as it had been. Position matters. Details matter. By the time Sabine came back downstairs, I was in my chair again, exactly where she had left me, staring blankly at the window. You should rest, she said softly. I am, I replied. And then, as if it had just occurred to me, I added, Sabine, have I been more forgetful lately? She stepped closer. Yes, she said gently. A little. I looked at her. Not too directly, not too sharp. Do you think I'm getting worse? Her expression softened into something almost reassuring. No, she said, but we should be careful. Careful. Such a useful word. That evening, something changed. Not in her behavior, in her urgency. She made a call earlier than usual. I heard it through the thin wall of the study, her voice lower, faster than before. She's slipping, she said. Faster now. A pause. No, not yet. Soon. Another pause. I know, but we need it signed while she still can. Signed. I didn't move, didn't breathe too loudly, just listened. When the call ended, I waited a full 10 minutes before stepping into the hallway, just as she emerged from the kitchen. Everything all right? I asked softly. She smiled. Of course. But now I knew. They weren't just waiting anymore. They were preparing. Whatever they needed from me, documents, signatures, control, it had to happen before I was gone. Before I couldn't resist. Before I couldn't remember. I returned to my study that night and locked the door behind me. This time, I didn't watch the footage. I prepared. I wrote down everything, the transfers, the pills, the conversations, the names, Carter Weil, Sabine Vossen, every detail clear and structured. Then, for the first time, I reached for a second number. Not the bank. Someone else. Someone who wouldn't ask if I was confused. Someone who would ask for proof. The line rang twice. Then a voice answered. Detective Alaric Vane. I didn't hesitate. My name is Helena Morday, I said calmly. And I believe someone is trying to take my life, slowly enough that no one would question it. There was a pause. Not disbelief. Interest. Go on, he said. And I did. For the next 20 minutes, I told him everything, not as a frightened old woman, as a witness. Detective Alaric Vane did not interrupt me once. That alone told me I had chosen correctly. When I finished, there was a brief silence on the line. Not doubt, not hesitation, but assessment. You said you have recordings? He asked. Yes. And a physical sample? Yes. Good, he said simply. Do not confront her. Do not change your routine more than you already have. People like this. They get nervous when patterns break. I understand. I'll need copies of everything, he continued. But more importantly, I need her to feel safe enough to continue. There it was again, not yet. The same timing. We're not just proving intent, he added. We're catching her in the act. I looked down at my hands. Steady. She's planning something soon, I said. She mentioned signatures. Another pause. Then we let her proceed, he replied. But on our terms. When the call ended, I sat for a moment longer, letting the weight of that settle in. On our terms. For the first time since this began, I was no longer alone in the house with her. The next morning, I gave her exactly what she needed. Weakness. I didn't get out of bed until she came to check on me. When she entered, I blinked slowly, as if the light bothered me. You should have called me, she said, stepping closer. You can't strain yourself like this. I must have forgotten, I murmured. She helped me sit up, her hands firm but careful. Let me handle things, she said softly. You don't need to worry about anything anymore. That sentence lingered. You don't need to worry anymore. I nodded. By midday, she had already taken control of the house again, curtains half drawn. My phone, once more, nowhere in sight. Even the front door remained locked, though I never asked for that. Isolation. Complete now. At lunch, she brought me a delicate plate. Soft poached fish with a pale sauce. Something with fennel, I think. The kind of meal designed to look light, harmless, nourishing. I touched none of it. Instead, I let my fork hover in the air, then set it down as if I had lost interest halfway through the motion. You're not eating, she observed. I'm not hungry. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. Then she smiled again. That's all right, she said. We'll keep it light today. Keep it light. Everything she said had two meanings now. That afternoon, something shifted. Not in me, in her. She became busier, moving between rooms more often, checking the time, making 2 calls instead of 1. The second call was shorter, sharper. Yes, she said. Today or tomorrow, it depends. A pause. She's ready. Ready. I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep, and let the words settle deep. That evening, she came to me with papers. Not immediately, not bluntly. She waited until I was seated comfortably, wrapped in a blanket, the soft lamplight making everything feel quieter than it was. Then she brought a folder. Helena, she said gently, sitting beside me. There are a few things we should take care of, just to make things easier for you. I looked at the folder as if it were unfamiliar. What kind of things? Simple adjustments, she replied. Authorizations, just in case you need additional support. I let my hand tremble slightly as I reached for it. The paper felt real, heavy, official, but I didn't open it. Instead, I looked at her. Do you think I need that? I asked softly. Her expression softened instantly. I think it would protect you, she said. Protect. Such a careful choice of word. I nodded slowly. Maybe tomorrow, I whispered. I feel tired tonight. For a fraction of a second, barely visible, something flashed across her face. Impatience. Then it was gone. Of course, she said. Tomorrow is fine. She stood, taking the folder with her. But she didn't go far. That night, I watched the footage again. And this time, I saw everything. She didn't return the folder to a drawer. She took it to the kitchen, placed it on the table, then made a call. It's happening, she said quietly. Tomorrow, I'll have her sign. A pause. Yes. She won't resist. Another pause. No. She doesn't understand anything anymore. I leaned back in my chair, the faint glow of the screen reflecting in my eyes. Tomorrow. That was their window, their final move. I reached for the small vial in my pocket, turning it slowly between my fingers. Then I looked at the second device on my desk, the one Detective Vane had told me to keep ready. I didn't feel afraid. Not anymore. Because tomorrow Sabine Vossen would walk into her own plan. And this time, she wouldn't be the one in control. I woke up before her. That had not happened in weeks. No heaviness in my head. No dull fog behind my eyes, just clarity, sharp, quiet, almost surgical. I sat up in bed and listened. The house was still. Then, faintly, movement in the kitchen. She was already preparing. Good. So was I. I stood slowly, not because I needed to, but because she expected it. Slipped on my robe, steadied myself against the wall just in case she was watching. Every step mattered now. Every gesture had to match the version of me she believed in. By the time I reached the hallway, she was already carrying a tray. "Good morning, Helena," Sabine said softly, as if nothing in the world had changed. "Good morning," I replied, letting my voice drag slightly behind my thoughts. She placed the tray in front of me. Tea, toast, something light with quince preserve. The same routine, the same performance. Only now I could see the tension underneath. Her movements were just a fraction faster, her eyes checking me more often than before. She wasn't waiting anymore. She was closing. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "A little," I said. "I feel strange." She leaned closer. "Strange how?" I paused, as if searching for the word. "Distant," I whispered. That was the right answer. I saw it land. "Then we should take care of everything today," she said gently, "before it gets worse." I nodded. Inside, something hardened completely. There it is. After breakfast. Untouched, of course. She disappeared into the study for a few minutes. When she returned, the folder was in her hands again. Thicker this time. Prepared. "Helena," she said, sitting beside me. "Let's not delay this. It's for your own security." Security. I looked at the papers without opening them. "Will it take long?" I asked. "No," she said. "Just a few signatures." Just a few. I reached for the pen she offered, let my fingers hesitate slightly as they closed around it. Then I stopped. "Maybe. After tea," I murmured. "My hands are unsteady. A mistake, a small one. But I saw it immediately." Her jaw tightened, barely, before she forced the softness back into her face. "Of course," she said. "I'll bring it." She stood and walked to the kitchen. This time, I didn't wait. I followed. Quietly. Not all the way. Just enough to see her reflection in the glass cabinet. She didn't know I was there. I watched her take out the cup. Watched her reach into her pocket. Watched the small white tablet appear again. Crush. Stir. The same precise motion, the same practiced calm. Then she picked up her phone. "Everything's set," she said quietly. "He'll sign today." He, not she. I froze. For a second, the entire plan shifted in my mind. They weren't just taking control of my accounts, they were preparing to replace my authority entirely. Power of attorney, full transfer, legal disappearance while still alive. I stepped back before she could turn. Returned to my chair. By the time she came in, I was exactly where she expected me to be. Waiting. Weak. She placed the tea in my hands. "Careful," she said softly. I looked at the cup, then at her. And for a moment, just a moment, I let the silence stretch longer than it should have. Something in her eyes flickered. Suspicion. Then I smiled faintly and lifted the cup. Not to drink. Just enough to convince her I would. That was all she needed. She relaxed, sat down across from me, watching, waiting. I lowered the cup back onto the tray. "After this," I whispered, "we'll sign." Her smile returned, softer than ever. "Yes," she said, "after this." I nodded, and in that moment, everything was locked in place. The evidence, the timing, the trap. Somewhere, Detective Vane was already moving. Somewhere, Gideon Strayed was watching every transaction. And here, in this room, Sabine Vossen believed she was about to win. I wrapped my fingers loosely around the cup, feeling the warmth against my skin. Then I set it down, untouched. Not long now, not for her. I didn't drink the tea, not a single sip, but I made sure she believed I did. I lifted the cup twice, letting it touch my lips without tilting it, letting the steam fog my glasses just enough. Then I set it down again, slower each time, as if the effort itself was draining me. Sabine watched every movement, counting, waiting. When I finally leaned back into the chair and closed my eyes, she exhaled, barely audible, but there. Relief. She thought it was working. "Helena?" she asked softly. I let a few seconds pass before answering. "Yes." "You should rest a moment. Then we'll take care of the paperwork." Paperwork. I nodded faintly, letting my head tilt to the side as if I couldn't quite hold it upright anymore. Just a moment. I heard her stand, heard the faint shuffle of papers being adjusted on the table, the quiet, controlled rhythm of someone preparing for something final. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking as if pulling myself back from somewhere far away. "Sabine." "I'm here," she said immediately, stepping closer. "I think I'm ready." That did it. I saw it clearly this time, not just satisfaction, but anticipation. A tightening around her eyes, a sharpness behind the softness. She placed the folder in my lap and handed me the pen again. "This won't take long," she said. "Just sign where I've marked." I looked down at the pages. Dense text. Legal structure. Names I recognized. Mine, and others I didn't. Transfers. Authority. Control. Permanent. I let my hand hover over the paper. Then I hesitated. Again. Not too much. Just enough. "What is this one?" I asked, pointing vaguely at a paragraph. She leaned in closer, too quickly. "That's just a standard authorization," she said, "in case you need assistance managing your affairs." "Assistance." I nodded slowly. "And this?" "A precaution," she replied. "Nothing more?" Nothing more. I could feel her impatience now, not visible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. But I was. I had been looking for days. I lowered the pen, then stopped again. "I can't see very well," I whispered. That was new. That made her pause. "For a moment," I added, blinking as if my vision had blurred. "Everything feels distant." Her expression shifted, Concern, yes, but behind it, something else. Urgency. "We shouldn't delay then," she said, her voice softer but tighter now. "Just sign here. I'll guide you." Guide you. She placed her hand lightly over mine, warm, steady, controlling the movement. That was her mistake. Contact, proximity, confidence. I let her guide my hand just enough for the pen to touch the paper, just enough for her to believe I was about to sign. Then, a knock. Sharp, loud, unexpected. Sabine froze. Not fully, just a fraction. But it was enough. We both turned toward the door. Another knock. More insistent this time. Her hand tightened around mine for a split second before she released it. "Stay here," she said quickly, standing up. Too quickly. I let the pen slip from my fingers onto the paper, as if I had lost control of it entirely. "Yes," I murmured faintly. She moved toward the door with measured steps, but I could see it now. The tension in her shoulders, the calculation restarting in her head. This wasn't part of the plan. Good. I stayed where I was, exactly as she had left me. Head slightly tilted, hands resting loosely. The perfect image of someone fading, but inside, everything was aligned, every second, every move. As she reached the door, I heard her voice shift again. Smooth, composed. "Just a moment," she called. The handle turned. The door opened. And a voice I had only heard once, through a phone line, stepped into my house. "Good afternoon," Detective Alaric Vane said calmly. Silence. Not complete, but close enough. Sabine didn't speak immediately. That told me everything. "I believe we need to talk," he added. I didn't move, didn't react, but I listened. Because this was where it began to break. Sabine recovered quickly, faster than most people would. "Oh, of course," she said, stepping slightly to the side, her voice smoothing out as if nothing had been interrupted. "How can I help you?" Detective Vane didn't step inside immediately. He looked past her. At me. Not long, not obvious, just enough to confirm one thing: I was still aware. Then he stepped in. "I'm here regarding a routine follow-up," he said calmly. "A welfare check." Welfare, such a harmless word. Sabine let out a small, polite laugh. "That's really not necessary," she replied. "Mrs. Morday is resting. She's been unwell." "I'll make that determination myself," he said. No edge, no raised tone, just certainty. That unsettled her more than anything else. I could hear it in the silence that followed. Then her voice again, softer now. "Of course," she said, "if you insist." She stepped aside. That was the moment everything shifted. He walked in slowly, taking in the room without making it obvious. The table. The folder. The pen still resting where it had slipped from my fingers. Details. Always details. "Mrs. Morday," he said, approaching me. "May I speak with you?" I blinked slowly as if trying to focus. "Yes," I murmured. He crouched slightly, not looming, not authoritative. Balanced. "Are you feeling all right today?" I let my gaze drift, just slightly unfocused. "A bit. Tired." "I understand," he said. "That happens." A pause, then quieter. "Do you know who I am?" I looked at him, really looked, and for just a fraction of a second, I let the clarity show. "Yes." That was enough. He stood up. Sabine saw it. I watched her process it. The shift, the signal, the fact that something had just passed between us that she wasn't part of. Danger. She moved closer. "Detective," she said gently, "I think you might be misunderstanding her condition. She has moments of clarity, but they don't last." "I didn't ask you," he said, still calm, still controlled, but final. That was the second crack. The first had been the knock. This was the break. She went quiet. Only for a moment. Then she adjusted. Of course she did. I'm responsible for her care, she continued a little firmer now. If there are questions, you can direct them to me. And I will, he said, but not before I speak with her privately. Privately. That word landed hard. No, she said immediately, too quickly. Another mistake. He turned to her fully now. Is there a reason you're refusing? Her posture stiffened. I'm not refusing, she corrected. I'm protecting her. From what? Silence. A thin one this time. I don't think this is appropriate, she said. I do, he replied. And then, without waiting for permission, he pulled out his phone. Backup can come in if necessary, he added lightly. That did it. Sabine stepped back, just half a step, but it was enough. Fine, she said. I'll be in the kitchen. She walked away. Not rushed, not panicked, but no longer in control. The moment she disappeared from the doorway, the air changed. Completely. Detective Vane didn't waste time. You have it? He asked quietly. Yes, I said. No weakness now. No hesitation. I reached under the blanket, pulled out the small flash drive, and placed it in his hand. And the sample? I slipped the vial from my pocket. He took both, his expression tightening slightly. Good, he said. Very good. Is it enough? I asked. It's more than enough, he replied. But we're not finished. I nodded. I know. He glanced toward the kitchen. She thinks she still has time, he said. She doesn't, I answered. Another pause. Then he straightened. Next step, he said quietly. We let her try again. I exhaled slowly. Of course. She needs to push, he continued. We need intent, action, and pressure all at once. And she will, I said. I already knew. Because Sabine Vossen wasn't the kind of person who walked away from something this close to completion. She would come back. With more urgency, less patience, and that's when people like her made mistakes they couldn't undo. From the kitchen, I heard a drawer open, then close, metal against wood. Preparing again. I leaned back into the chair, letting my body soften once more, slipping back into the version of me she believed in. Weak, fading, easy to control. Detective Vane gave me one last look. You're doing exactly right, he said quietly. Then he turned, and just like that, the performance resumed. Only now. We were both watching her. She came back different, not visibly, not to anyone who wasn't paying attention, but I was. Sabine moved slower this time, more controlled, every gesture measured as if she had already adjusted her plan mid-step. The softness returned to her face, but it was thinner now, stretched over something sharper underneath. Everything all right? She asked gently, stepping into the room as if nothing had changed. Detective Vane turned toward her. Perfectly, he said. They held each other's gaze for a second too long, two people measuring the same thing. Risk. Then she smiled again. Good, she said. Helena was just about to finish signing. I let my hand twitch slightly on the armrest. Small, weak, uncertain. I was trying, I murmured. She stepped closer, reclaiming her position beside me. Of course you were, she said softly. You're doing very well. Very well, like I was a child, or worse, someone already halfway gone. She picked up the pen and placed it back into my hand, this time more carefully, more deliberately. Let's continue, she said. Detective Vane didn't interfere. That was the plan. He moved slightly to the side, watching. Not openly, but enough. Waiting. I looked down at the paper again, the same pages, but now I knew what they meant. Transfer of financial authority, access, control, and beneath that, something worse. Permanent authorization in case of mental decline. They weren't just preparing to manage my life. They were preparing to erase my voice from it. Here, Sabine said, guiding my hand again. Just this line. I let the pen touch the paper. Just enough. My fingers tightened slightly, then loosened. A slow, uneven line appeared, incomplete, not a signature, a failure. I can't, I whispered. Her grip tightened. Try again, she said softly. Too soft, too controlled. I can't see it properly. Another pause. This time longer, this time heavier. Then, a voice from the doorway. Maybe I can help with that? All three of us turned. A man stood there, tall, familiar, too familiar. Carter Weil. So he had decided to come in person. That told me everything. Sabine hadn't planned for this. This was escalation, unscheduled, risky, which meant they were running out of time. Who is this? Detective Vane asked calmly. Carter didn't answer immediately. His eyes were on me, studying, measuring, just like hers. Then he smiled. Family associate, he said smoothly. Helping with legal matters. Lie clean. Practiced. Immediate. Sabine didn't correct him. Another mistake. Of course, she added quickly. He's assisting with the paperwork. Vane nodded slightly, as if accepting it. But I could feel the shift. The pressure had just doubled. Carter stepped closer to the table, his presence filling the space in a way Sabine never had. Where she was precise, he was direct, impatient. We don't have all day, he said quietly. Not to me, to her. That was important. Sabine's control wasn't absolute. Interesting. I lowered my gaze again, letting my hand tremble more visibly now. I'm tired, I murmured. You'll be fine, Carter said sharply. Too sharp. Sabine glanced at him, warning. But it was too late. That tone didn't match the story. Not caregiver, not gentle. Predatory. Detective Vane saw it. I saw it. Even Sabine saw it. And for the first time, something cracked between them. You're pushing too hard, she whispered under her breath. We're out of time, he replied just as quietly. There it was. The truth. Out in the open. They weren't just executing a plan anymore. They were rushing it. And rushed people make mistakes. Big ones. I let the pen slip from my fingers again, this time falling to the floor with a soft, hollow sound. I can't, I whispered. Silence. Heavy. Then Carter moved. Fast. Too fast. He stepped forward, reaching down, not for the pen. For me. And that was the moment everything snapped. Don't. The word didn't come from me. It came from behind him, sharp, final, controlled. Carter froze mid-motion. Detective Vane didn't raise his voice, didn't step forward aggressively, didn't even reach for him yet. But something in the room shifted so completely that even Carter felt it. Slowly, Carter straightened. Too slowly, like a man deciding whether to commit or retreat. That's close enough, Vane added. Now Carter turned, fully. For the first time, he actually looked at the detective. Not through him, not past him, but at him. Evaluating. Danger. Sabine stepped in quickly. It's just a misunderstanding, she said, her voice returning to that careful softness. But now it was strained. Helena is unwell, she's confused, and this process is taking longer than expected. She seems very clear to me, Vane interrupted. Silence. Again. But this one was heavier, because now the illusion was breaking in real time. Carter exhaled sharply through his nose. We're wasting time, he muttered. And that was it. The final mistake. Not what he said. How he said it. Too direct. Too exposed. Too real. Vane took one step forward. "You want to explain what exactly you're doing here?" he asked calmly. Carter didn't answer. Sabine tried. "He's assisting with documentation," she said quickly. "We've already explained." "No," Vane said. "You haven't." Another step. Closer now. "I've got enough to ask better questions," he continued, "so I'll try again. What are you doing here?" This time, Carter didn't look at him. He looked at Sabine. And in that glance, I saw it. No more control. No more clean coordination. Just two people realizing, at the same time, that the plan had slipped beyond recovery. "Finish it," Carter said under his breath. Not to me. To her. Sabine didn't move. Didn't speak. For the first time since I'd known her, she hesitated. That hesitation cost her everything. Because in that exact moment, Vane reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. "Officers," he said calmly, pressing the button. "Come in." The front door opened immediately. They had been there the entire time, waiting. Two uniformed officers stepped inside, fast and controlled. Everything accelerated. Sabine stepped back instinctively. Carter didn't. "Wait," Sabine said quickly, her voice breaking just slightly now. "This isn't what it looks like." "Then you won't mind explaining it at the station," Vane replied. Carter moved. Not toward the door, toward the table, the papers, the folder. Desperation. He reached for it. Too late. One of the officers was already there, intercepting him, pulling his arm back. "Hands where I can see them," the officer said. Carter resisted for half a second, just enough to make it worse. They forced him down, controlled, efficient. Sabine didn't run. She didn't fight. She stood there, still, watching it collapse. "Miss Vossen," Vane said, turning to her, "you're going to need to come with us." Her eyes moved slowly, from him to Carter to me, and for the first time, the softness was gone completely. "What did you do?" she asked me quietly. Not angry, not loud, just cold. I met her gaze, steady, clear. "I stayed aware," I said. That was all. Her jaw tightened, then she laughed. Once, short, almost impressed. "You were supposed to fade," she said. "I didn't." Another officer stepped forward. "Ma'am." She didn't resist, not physically. But as they took her arm, she looked back at me one last time. And this time, there was no performance left. Just calculation. Even now. Even at the end. She was still thinking, still measuring, still trying to understand where it had gone wrong. The door closed behind them. Silence returned. Real silence this time, not staged, not controlled. Gone. I sat there, the pen still on the floor, the unsigned paper in my lap, and felt something I hadn't felt in days. Air. Clean. Clear. Mine. Detective Vane stepped closer. "It's over," he said. I looked down at my hands. They weren't shaking. Not anymore. "No," I said quietly. Then I looked up at him. "Now it is." The house felt different after they left. Not quieter. Lighter. Like something that had been pressing down on every surface, every chair, every wall, every breath, had finally lifted. I didn't move right away. I sat there, exactly where Sabine had left me, the folder still resting in my lap, the pen lying on the floor between my feet. For a moment, I just looked at it. Such a small thing. A signature. That's all it would have taken. One moment of weakness. 1 second of trust in the wrong person. And everything I had built, every decision, every memory, every right to my own life, would have been handed over quietly, legally, permanently. "Mrs. Morday?" Detective Vane's voice brought me back. I looked up. He hadn't left yet. Of course he hadn't. Are you all right? He asked. Yes, I said. And this time, it was the simplest truth I had spoken in days. He nodded once, then glanced around the room. They'll process everything quickly, he said. With what you gave us, the recordings, the sample, the financial trail, this won't stay complicated for long. I followed his gaze to the table, the folder. Take it, I said. He stepped forward, picked it up carefully, flipping it open just enough to confirm what we already knew. Power of attorney, he said quietly. Full asset access. Contingency transfer clause. He closed it. They weren't being subtle. No, I replied. They didn't need to be. He looked at me again. You were closer than you think, he added. I knew that. I had known it the moment Carter stepped into the room. Timing, always timing. If he had come 10 minutes earlier, if Vane had been delayed, if I had hesitated just once. No, I didn't finish that thought because I didn't need to. I have one more question, I said. He waited. My daughter, I continued. Elin. His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. Was she involved? A pause, measured, careful. No, he said finally. Not directly. Not directly. That phrasing mattered. She believed what she was told, he added. That you were declining, that help was necessary. I looked down at my hands. So clean, so simple, so wrong. She stopped asking questions, I said quietly. Yes, he replied. That hurt more than anything Sabine had done, because Sabine was a stranger. Elin wasn't. After a moment, Vane spoke again. We'll need a formal statement, he said. And I'll arrange for someone to review your medication properly. Just to be sure. I already know, I said. He nodded. I figured you did. He moved toward the door, then paused. You did everything right, he said. I didn't answer immediately, because that wasn't entirely true. I waited too long, I said. He shook his head. No, he replied. You waited exactly long enough. Then he left. The door closed, and for the first time since all of this began, I was alone. Truly alone. I stood up slowly, without thinking about it, without performing weakness, without calculating how it might look. Just stood. Walked to the kitchen. The cup was still there, the one from earlier. Steam long gone. Chamomile untouched. I picked it up, carried it to the sink, and poured it out. Watched the liquid disappear down the drain without hesitation. No more pretending, no more waiting, just action. I rinsed the cup carefully, set it aside, then rested my hands on the edge of the counter. The house smelled different already, less like her. More like something I remembered, something mine. My eyes drifted to the window, late afternoon light, soft and steady, stretching across the garden. For 3 years I had let someone else move through this space as if it belonged to them. Quietly, gradually, almost politely. And that was the most dangerous part. Not force, not violence, but permission. I straightened slightly. No more of that. Not again. Not ever. From the hallway, my phone began to ring. I turned slowly, walked back, picked it up. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in days. Elin. I stared at it for a moment, then answered. Mother? Her voice came through, tight, uncertain. Something happened. I just got a call. Yes, I said calmly. A pause. Are you all right? She asked. I considered the question, then answered honestly. I am now. Silence on the other end. Heavy, uncomfortable, real. We need to talk, she said finally. Yes, I replied, and this time, that conversation would happen on my terms. Aylin came the next morning. No warning, no call this time. Just the sound of a car stopping outside, a door closing too quickly, footsteps that didn't belong to Sabine anymore. I opened the door before she could knock. For a second, she just stood there, looking at me, not past me, not through me, at me. "You look," she started, then stopped. "Clear?" I suggested. She swallowed. "Yes." That word carried more weight than anything else she could have said. I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked slowly into the house, her eyes moving across the room. The table, the chair, the empty space where Sabine used to stand as if she owned it. "What happened?" she asked. I closed the door behind her. "The truth," I said simply. We sat across from each other. No tea, no performance, no one in between. I told her everything. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Just as it was. The pills, the calls, the missing money, the documents she had never seen but had almost signed for me. Carter, the cameras, the timing. The moment I realized, the moment I stopped trusting, the moment I started acting. Aylin didn't interrupt, not once. She just listened. And as I spoke, I watched her face change. Confusion, denial, recognition, and then something much heavier. Guilt. "I thought," she began, then stopped again. "I know what you thought," I said. "That you were getting worse," she finished quietly. "Yes." Silence. "I didn't question her," she said. "No. I should have. Yes." No anger in my voice, no softness either, just truth. That made it harder for her. Tears came, but quietly, not dramatic, not forced. "I was trying to help," she whispered. "I believe you," I said. And I did. That didn't change what happened, but it mattered. She looked around the house again. "It feels different," she said. "It is." I stood up and walked to the window, the same light as yesterday, but it didn't feel fragile anymore. "I'm not hiring anyone else," I said calmly. She turned toward me. "You shouldn't be alone," she said. "I'm not," I replied. Then I looked at her, directly. "But I won't give control away again, not to make things easier, not to make someone else comfortable." She nodded slowly, understanding something she hadn't before. Respect. It had never been about help. It had been about control. Later that afternoon, after she left, I walked through the house one more time, room by room, kitchen, study, hallway. Everything was exactly where it had always been, but it felt returned. Like something had been taken quietly, not objects, not furniture, but presence. And now it was mine again. In the kitchen, I made tea. Properly this time. Loose chamomile, fresh water, no shortcuts. I poured it into my cup and sat down. Alone, and completely in control. I took a sip. Warm, clean, real. No bitterness, no hidden taste. Just tea and silence. The good kind. I'll be honest. I would have acted earlier, the moment someone controls your calls, your money, your body. It's already too far. But Helena did something most people can't. She stayed calm, gathered proof, and ended it cleanly. If you've ever felt something was off, trust that feeling, and don't wait as long as she did. If this hit you, subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments. Would you have caught it sooner?